Throughout Western civilization, with or without the rule of six, most people have a real genetic link to Ireland, and even those who don't will admit they feel a strong emotional connection to Ireland because of the spirit and passion of its people and what it means to be Irish. A country famous for its glorious landscape of green and its vibrant and rich history, Ireland is a place that most people dream of visiting at some point in their life. Every year on March 17th, Irish people all around the globe come together to celebrate their heritage and culture on St. Patrick's Day. Lá el Fádric, as it's known in the Irish language, St. Patrick's Day is a day for the Irish diaspora to reconnect to their roots, and for those who are Irish at heart to celebrate the spirit of Ireland and some of our most notable traditions. The physical representation of that bond is the universal wearing of green, which represents the Irish spirit and the passion for life throughout our history.
What does it mean to be Irish is a question most people like to associate with being a generation apart from being, straight from Ireland. So for me, born in Ireland, raised in Ireland, I just consider myself a person from Ireland. When you go abroad, I think that's when that question becomes more relevant. A lot of people like to associate themselves with a certain country, wherever their origins are, their family comes from. For me, being Irish, a lot of culture, a lot of emphasis on culture and language. My family, we grew up speaking the Irish language, learning English in school to communicate with others who didn't speak Irish, and music. A very big part for me of being Irish is the roots that we have in music and culture and the language that came from the Celts.
I've been to Ireland several times. When I was younger, it was to learn, and then more recently to perform there. But when I was over the first time, I remember just stepping off the plane, and it felt like a completely foreign, obviously foreign, but just wonderful experience at the same time. They were so accommodating, and just I felt almost at home even though I'd never been across the sea before, and just the music and the people, just amazing.
I guess what it means to me to be Irish is that I am lucky to come from a place where the music and the community that I'm a part of goes back a long way. We can trace the language we speak goes back over, I guess, over 1,000 years more in Ireland, and the music that has come through with that time is central to our family. I was lucky to be brought up in a family of musicians. I play the harp, my mom plays the harp, my grandmother was my harp teacher, and my brothers all play music, and my uncles, we just grew up with that around us. So that was my understanding of being Irish. Only when I started to travel did I realize that not everybody has this at home. I just assumed everybody had the same thing. And then when you start to travel and tour, I realized just how lucky I was. And we're representing Ireland so many times, traveling around the world. And to say that you're from a family or a culture like that, it's something the more I travel, the more I value where I came from. So I guess what being Irish means to me is that I come from a place where people are welcome. We're an island where everybody, my family are half Gaelic Irish and half Norman from the invasion of 1100 years ago, and they're still considered, invaders in some ways. But Ireland has the Vikings, it has the English, it has the Spaniards, it has the Normans, it has all these tribes. So being Irish to me means being open to all the cultures that have come in. Or the Gaelic attitude was always to look outward and welcome in what they liked and absorb it into the culture. And I think the more we travel around the world as a culture, that the more it's obvious that we can coexist. And I think Ireland is a lovely example of how these things, when they merge, even on a small little island like Ireland, can actually enrich the culture.
Yeah, I don't know, I suppose for me the music aspect is probably the thing I'm most uniquely Irish with. I'm not a native speaker of the language, whereas some people are, but the Irish traditional music culture is probably the thing I've most absorbed and now try to put forward as being particularly Irish, but also just something that's in my cultural background, family background.
Known as the land of saints and scholars, Ireland has always been a romantic draw for people from all over the globe. Its lush, verdant landscape, expressive music, and unique dance, along with its epic heritage, has captured the hearts of millions. the hearts of the Irish have been credited with some of the most inspirational poetry and literature, creative satire, music, dance and art. The immeasurable sense of humour and love of life is not created from any single part of Irish culture, but is a testament to the ability of the Irish people to come through adversity and hardship with faith, humour and the strength to persevere.
What makes Irish people so special is their sense of humour, first and foremost, their zest for life and their love of traditional music. And what I specifically love the most about them is that they passed the music down from generation to generation. I think that's really important.
I don't know what makes Irish people so special. I guess we enjoy having fun and good company with other people and making the best of, you know, a gathering of any kind and any excuse for a party or any excuse for a get-together. And we do burst into song at any, you know, given moment, even when it's not necessarily appropriate. But I think that's part of the charm. I don't want to use the word charm. But I think when Irish people you take even the sports fans, the European football champions, the World Cup, the Irish fans are always there having fun. There's no riots, we're a people who like to have fun and not necessarily start. I mean, you know, everyone gets a bit rowdy, but if you look at like the difference between like, the French police and the Irish fans, they were making jokes, they were writing songs on the spot to sing with the French police after a football match. Or you go and people make music on aeroplanes when there's a festival and all the musicians are on board a plane. The tune starts at 30,000 feet because we're having fun. I think that kind of shows the mentality. If we gather together, we make it the best of it, and we always have a good time, and we include everybody who's around us. So I think that's one of the reasons we travel well.
I think what makes Irish people so special is the fact that they're great crack. You can have good fun with them, and they're into traditional music, dancing, singing, and hurling and football, and there's always something going on. And that's what I find with the Irish people. You know, we're a very tight-knit race when it comes to it, you know.
I'd say the tradition in the music has a huge amount to do with it, especially for me. There's an incredible amount of emotion that goes into the traditions, and especially musical culture within Ireland. And so you have obviously very slow, sad, mournful ballads that are just absolutely stunning, and you can feel between the poetry and the lyrics and the melody itself. You can just feel the emotion, the really strong emotion that's carried through them. And then you go from that to really high energy, high speed, fast tunes that are incredibly vibrant, joyful, lively. Some of that I find is to express joy, but some of it's also to deal with some of that sorrow. And, you know, the history really brings a lot of those emotions because of the turmoil that the country and the culture went through. And so because of how deep rooted that is, you know, those traditions kind of really stand out, sometimes much more so than other cultures, I've found, and so that's often what draws me to it, and the fact that music is relatable to many people around the world. And so, and me being one of them, I'm Irish kind of a couple generations back, but it's certainly something that has drawn me into that culture and that music. And when you go over to Ireland and visit Ireland, obviously there's incredible beauty just naturally throughout the country and the geography of the country, but the people are some of the warmest people that you'll ever meet, some of the funniest people that you'll ever meet. And I think it all kind of, it's pulled into one because of those experiences and the way that history has kind of carried things forward. And, you know, so that culture comes out of it. And for me, that's kind of what has drawn me in and kept me there for quite a long time.
The ability to make light of pretty much any scenario. I think we can place fun and excitement in things that for other people can be quite difficult or whatever. So we make light of pretty much everything.
Known as the patron saint of Ireland, it is commonly overlooked that St. Patrick was an immigrant, originally born in Britain to Roman parents. His time away from Ireland was short-lived, however, and following a vivid dream where a voice told him that he should return to Ireland and be the voice of the Irish, St. Patrick returned and began his travels around Ireland, preaching the gospel and converting the Irish people to Christianity. The commonly told story is simply that St. Patrick was an Irish saint who drove the snakes from Ireland. But there is much more to the story than that. Most of what we know about St. Patrick comes from a book called The Confession of St. Patrick, or the Confessio, which also appears in the Book of Armagh on location at Trinity College, Dublin. St. Patrick wrote the Confessio late in life, and it describes not only his life experiences, but also tells of his absolute faith and trust in God. One of the most famous stories about St. Patrick is the lighting of the Paschal fire. It was a common law in Ireland at the time that all fires should be extinguished until the festival fire was lit on the hill of Tara. St. Patrick arrived at the hill of Sláinte and, in defiance of the king, lit the Paschal fire. The Druids and chieftains did everything in their power to oppose and stop St. Patrick, but their attempts were vanquished, and this defiance was a blow to the continuation of the pagan faith in Ireland. The High King recognised his zeal and persistence and gave permission for St. Patrick to spread the gospel to the Irish people and make the lighting of the Paschal fire a long-standing tradition.
On Tara's hill the daylight dies, on Tara's plain 'tis dead. Till Baal's enkindled fires shall rise, no fire must flame instead. 'Tis thus the king commanding speaks, commands and speaks in vain. For lo, a fire defiant breaks from out the woods of Slain. For there, in prayer is Patrick bent, with Christ his soul is knit. And there before his simple tent the Paschal fire is lit.
Croagh Patrick is a 762-metre mountain located in County Mayo and has been a popular site with religious pilgrims reaching back at least to 4000 BC. Legend has it that Croagh Patrick was the site from which St. Patrick banished the snakes from Ireland forever. It is also the site where he completed his 40 days and nights ritual of fasting and penance for Lent. Every year, thousands of pilgrims visit and climb Croagh Patrick as a day of worship and penance, with Mass and confession being held throughout the day on site in St. Patrick's Chapel. Of the many stories and legends about St. Patrick, one stands out detailing the baptism of the King of Munster at the Rock of Cashel. St. Patrick, who was performing this historic event, accidentally put his crozier through the king's foot. When the king was later asked why he didn't complain about the pain of the injury, he simply replied that he thought it was part of the ceremony. It is told that on that day the king was one of hundreds baptised by St. Patrick. So how did the celebration of an Irish saint become such a global event? The short answer to this would be that the emigration of the Irish people around the world has been so prolific that few cultures on earth are devoid of Irish people and their influence. The first parade in honour of St. Patrick was held in the new colonies of what would become the United States in 1761.
Well, in New York City, St. Patrick's Day, the tradition is unbelievable. It's the one day of the year but that people finally get to proclaim loudly that they are Irish in America. When you're an American growing up, people ask you, what are you? It's always the question you get, what are you? People in our neighborhood would say, oh, I'm Italian, or I'm French, or I'm Norwegian. But I came from a very Irish-American neighborhood, and we were very proud of being Irish. And on St. Patrick's Day was the annual trek down to Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, and where you'd march along with 200,000 people from all marches, whether it be schools, it would be pipe bands, it would be Irish dancing schools, all the counties would be represented. But there'd be 200,000 people marching and 1 million people lining the streets, and nowadays millions of people watching on YouTube, and it would be televised. But it was one day of the year that there was always a traditional Irish band playing on all the top TV programs, and it was one day that we really got to salute and you say, Yahoo, the Irish have arrived and here we are, and be so proud of our heritage. And that was the day that we'd always look forward to, was March 17th, the day of the Irish for sure in New York.
I guess my most significant family memories of St. Patrick's Day would be going to the parade with my mom and dad when I was about 5 or 6. You start off when you're, we all get driven out and you get stacked up in front and you watch the parade go by. But it was never a very carnival atmosphere in Dublin. New York always had a bigger parade than Dublin for a long time. So as kids, we used to go in and one year it snowed on St. Patrick's Day, and I never forget standing in the snow, supposed to be enjoying myself, but this was the snow. But then, you know, as you grow older, you realize what it's all about. And I guess my most recent memory of a very significant St. Patrick's Day was New York City last year. We opened the parade, myself and Moya Brennan, the singer from the group Clonard. We sat on Fifth Avenue at 11 in the morning for NBC television to play the first piece to open up the St. Patrick's Day parade. It was a very special moment because we always knew, you know, New York was a bigger deal than Dublin nearly for St. Patrick, and it's I think it's over 200 and something years. It's been unbroken in New York. There's been a St. Patrick's Day parade for way longer than there has been in Dublin. So it's very important and very significant.
But in America, it's amazing what they have done. I mean, right now there's 33 million Irish Americans in America. You know, when you talk about Ireland has maybe 5 to 6 million, and in America we have 33 million people of Irish descent. And, you know, for a little country, they've certainly, as I said, they have, in all walks of life, and once again, they have really made their mark. And the ones that came to America, who emigrated, really in one generation, went from uneducated people to having children that have gone on to do incredible, remarkable things. And right now, they're some of the leaders in some of the biggest businesses, and whatever, you name it, from the police force to the fire department, you know, the Irish names, which were once shunned upon, are now heralded and really have climbed their way to the top of the mountain in practically every sector. So it's wonderful to be a part of that and be here and to see that. And again, very proud of what the Irish have accomplished in America.
The holiday originated on the date of St. Patrick's death on March 17th and has grown in popularity around the world. While the spirit of the day is to honour St. Patrick's accomplishments and celebrate his life with food, drink and merriment, St. Patrick's Day holds a very special place in every Irish person's heart.
Professionally, my memories mostly consist of playing in pubs. It's a very busy day for traditional musicians, so I suppose historically you'd often get 3 and 4 gigs a day, starting pretty early, and you'd hop from one to the next, and by the end of the day you'd be pretty sore. So that's basically how it works out for a musician. And personally, I think it's just a great time to meet up with friends that you mightn't have seen for a while. Often, you know, people will come in Dublin, where I grew up. A lot of people will come to the city. It's the capital city in Ireland, so a lot of people will come there and meet up. So that's what would generally happen. But for many years, most of us as professional musicians, you don't really get a chance to be in Dublin on St. Patrick's Day. You're traveling, playing music. So that's the way it goes, you know.
Well, I make my home now in Yonkers, New York, which is a very, very Irish neighborhood, probably one of the most Irish neighborhoods in all of America. Many, many, many immigrants and sons and daughters of immigrants make their home there. And it's very, very, again, involved with music and sports and culture. I was very honored in 2013 where they selected me to be the Grand Marshal for the Yonkers Parade. And we had over 40,000 people in our neighborhood lining the streets. And again, the parade went on for 2 hours while so many bands and Irish music groups and sports groups from around the area came and marched in support and celebration of the Irish that are in our neighborhood. So it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience, and it was one of my proudest moments to walk down there with my great aunt's shillelagh that she brought out in the early 1900s in my hand. So it was a lot of fun.
The most memorable one would be when I was about maybe 16 or 17, a group traveled from my primary school or elementary school, past pupils, and it was the old principal organised it, and we went to Philadelphia and took part in the Philadelphia St. Patrick's Day Parade, which was a lot of fun.
Professionally, yes. I'm actually not Irish. I don't have a drop of Irish blood in me, but as someone recently told me, Greg, you've been involved in the culture for so long, we consider you one of us. So I have a lot of good memories. There was a bagpipe band I used to play with in Northeast Ohio, and every St. Patrick's Day, of course, we were in big demand and go out and perform at various bars and everything, and also being an Irish dancer, that was also the highlight of my day. The bagpipes are a hobby, Irish dance is my passion. So just to be able to go out and do that, it's, I mean, I can remember every dance I did from any time I went out on St. Patrick's Day, and those were all great, great memories.
What I would associate with St. Patrick's Day is the fact that we'd get up on the Patrick's morning. It was a national holiday. We would go to Mass, and when we'd be at Mass, the priest would give you the shamrock and pin it onto your jacket. And then we would come home and go to the matches or go to the parade, whichever we decided we wanted to go to. Because there was always great matches on St. Patrick's Day. The interprovincial finals were always on Patrick's Day in Croke Park, so we generally went to those. But the interprovincial finals are the 4 provinces of Ireland, where they would meet, 2 provinces would meet in semi-final, and then in the final, the 2 provinces that won would compete the final, and it was always held in Croke Park on Patrick's Day.
So the shamrock obviously is something that's very is particularly Irish and very much associated with St. Patrick's Day. So I always remember my parents would arrive to the house with a little satchel of the shamrock that you would pin to your lapel or your shirt or whatever for the day. And that was kind of the most tangible thing I think that we would do on the given day that's particularly associated with St. Patrick's Day.
Some of the traditions that I generally associate with St. Patrick's Day are step dancing, because I grew up as a step dancer since I was very young. Traditional music is probably the biggest one, I'd say. Just always having music playing of different kinds, whether it's fiddle, whether it's accordions and concertinas, things like that. Certainly uilleann pipes uilleann pipes and the harp are kind of the 2 biggest ones for Irish music. And lots of céilís, so lots of dancing to go along with it, and lots of singing. Always singing, and just lots of people gathering together and having a great time.
Some of the most, I suppose, important traditions associated with St. Patrick's Day in Ireland would be, I guess, the parade and the celebration of everything that is Irish. The Gaelic language is really important, and there's a week-long Seachtain na Gaeilge, a week of Gaelic, which tries to encourage the whole country to use whatever Irish they have, to speak it amongst themselves or to use it in public. And they should use it all year round, and they all learn it in school, but they don't practice it, or they don't use it in pubs or in shops very often. But this week is very particular for that. So I guess people focus more on their Irishness. When you go abroad, you use your Irish more, or you are more conscious of what happens at home. But at home, we kind of get lazy about it sometimes. So I guess St. Patrick's Day and the week up to it, we don't call it St. Patrick's, we call it St. Patrick's Week. We have a whole week celebration now. And I guess it's a holy day of obligation, so people go to Mass and people think about the spiritual side of what St. Patrick brought to Ireland and his missionary work in a way of bringing Christianity to Ireland. And the shamrock is really associated with St. Patrick's message. But I guess nowadays more of it is to do with, it's a cultural celebration of Ireland. We don't have a National Independence Day. So people focus on St. Patrick's Day as the day for Ireland. So it's across the country, it crosses the border. It's a very universal way of celebrating everyone from the island of Ireland.
So why do people wear green on St. Patrick's Day? It is said that St. Patrick's revellers thought wearing green made you invisible to leprechauns, the fairy creatures who are synonymous with Ireland, and that if you didn't wear green, these leprechauns would pinch you. This then developed into people pinching those who abstained from wearing green as a reminder that leprechauns were watching in wait to sneak up and pinch them. Thankfully, this practice has become a redundant but much-loved tradition.
Wearing green on St. Patrick's Day is a way of really to say, yes, I'm here and I'm Irish. People always say when they land into America, when you land into Ireland, that when it's a quilt, a patchwork quilt of the 40 shades of green. And of course, I met Johnny Cash once, and he told me one of the greatest things was landing in Ireland, and he loved going to County Cork and all the shades of green, and that's why he wrote that song. And I really think it is true when you do see that, when you're landing, and people just say it was green, a green country, and people always wore green as a statement of pride. That yes, I'm kiss me, I'm Irish. I'm green today, and I'll be green for the rest of the year as well. So that's what people say. In America, if you wore red, you were Italian, but if you wore green, you were Irish.
Wearing green on St. Patrick's Day it's an interesting thing. We wear shamrocks, as in the plant. You stick a bit of shamrock, a little clump of shamrock on, and that's the only green I would ever wear on St. Patrick's Day. I suppose when you see in the US in particular, they've taken it's amazing how much it means to people over here and in the US, and it's a cultural statement, you know, to wear the green, and we don't do it as much at home at all. You know, it's funny, we don't, because actually the national color is not green, you know, but the celebration of Ireland is wearing the green, and I think we always wear a green tie or you know, green T-shirt or something just to join in. But as kids, we never, the green was always just the shamrock, because it represented St. Patrick's Day and the actual Trinity, and the three parts of that. St. Patrick would have used the shamrock as his emblem, you know. So that was the only green we would always wear at home was the actual shamrock, a clump of it and a bit of clay sticking. It was always a bit strange, but it was wonderful. And the custom I know every year is that the Irish Taoiseach, the Prime Minister, always hands the US President a bowl of fresh shamrock from home in a Waterford crystal bowl, and it's just so it's become this you know, this piece, or this connection between Ireland and the Irish and the US, where the shamrock is the key to it, and it is green, and that's why the green is so important.
I do wear green, and occasionally I will also wear blue, because I think it's a little known fact that blue is the national color of Ireland. I know the landscape truly defines the green and everything, the Emerald Isle and the rolling green hills and the green cliffs of Moher and so forth. But yeah, I do make it a point that I'll have one or the other or both on that day.
People wear green on St. Patrick's Day. I don't know why exactly, but it's probably because it's such a lush countryside, and it's all green, and they come to associate Ireland with green. So I wear a little bit of green just so I don't get pinched.
One of the most loved St. Patrick's Day traditions in the USA is the famous dyeing of the river green. This practice originated in 1962 in the city of Chicago, Illinois, and we asked Chicago native and world music vocalist and composer Jen Lennon to tell us a little about this much-loved event.
Every year, hundreds of thousands of people from all over Illinois, Chicagoland area, and the world gather for its annual St. Patrick's Day parades. Chicago has one of the largest St. Patrick's Day celebrations in the world, if not the largest. The most popular tradition being the dyeing of the river green, which is dyed every year from the Chicago journeyman plumbers. What do you think about this really crazy Irish celebration? Any thoughts?
So fun.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think the river is like the special gift for Chicago.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that is one of the most biggest events here in Chicago, and it's just beautiful because it got people from all around the world, and everybody can appreciate the lake and that they dine it. So it's just awesome for us.
That's wonderful. And I don't know if anyone told you, but here in Chicago on St. Patrick's Day, everybody is Irish. So you're honorary Irish.
I'm from Colombia, my friend's from Brazil, and just this special day.
I'm standing here next to two of my friends. We have Letty here, who is a Mexican-American native Chicagoan, and we have Bartek all the way from Poland. And as you can see, they are definitely celebrating the St. Patrick's Day parade today. Letty here is dressed as a cat. Would you mind showing us your tail, Letty? That is so beautiful. She's not afraid of the cold here. So tell us a little bit about what you guys did this morning to celebrate.
We just woke up early, got ready, prepared to go out, and we just got here like an hour ago. Unfortunately, we didn't make the parade, but maybe next year.
Oh, wonderful. And what are your plans for the evening?
Just to take pictures by the Green River and go out after, go find something to eat, maybe have a green beer.
Yes.
My friends and I, we come here every few years to hang out and not obviously to have a good time, but this past year I did some traveling over in Ireland and was able to celebrate over there with them, and it was super fun because they get really into it.
It's my birthday, so everybody's out celebrating, so I just feel right in, like I could celebrate with anybody today.
That is fantastic. So I'm wondering if today is going to be your most favorite St. Patrick's Day memory, but do you have one from the past that you'd like to share?
Personally, the fact that my birthday is the day after St. Patrick's Day makes everything happy there. So eating some corned beef and cabbage at some point is going to work for me.
That is wonderful. So we have two very lucky people here celebrating the luck of the Irish, and we're so glad you're here celebrating with us in Chicago today. Thank you so much for chatting with me, and Sláinte, have a happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you know anything about St. Patrick and the St. Patrick tradition?
It's been a while since I've recalled the history. I know St. Patrick was a Irish Catholic, obviously a saint, and I don't remember exactly the history, but I know he had some sort of bonfire was sort of the history of how this all started. I don't remember for what reason, but that's the history that's about as much as I can recall, but it sort of blew up into this whole party thing because of that event, and I'm not really sure why all the drinking and debauchery, but you know, this is that's about as much of the history that I know.
2016 marked the 7th year of Tourism Ireland's Global Greening, an annual initiative which sees some of the world's most famous sites going green to mark St. Patrick's Day. From tiny beginnings in 2010 with just the Sydney Opera House, global greening has gone from strength to strength, spreading across countries and continents. In 2016, over 240 iconic landmarks in 127 cities in 45 countries were illuminated in green for St. Patrick's Day, including the London Eye, Niagara Falls, the Sacré-Cœur Basilica in Paris, the Colosseum in Rome, Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio de Janeiro, Burj Al Arab in Dubai, and the Great Wall of China, to mention just some. Through its Global Greening Initiative, Tourism Ireland aims to leverage the high profile of St. Patrick's Day across the world, reconnecting with the 70 million people who claim ancestral links with the island. It does this at an important time for holiday decision-making, helping to engender a sense of pride in Irish people at home and abroad.
My mother and father both emigrated from Ireland in the 1950s, and both of them left when they didn't want to leave. They really had no choice because there was no future. My mother came from a farm, and my father's family, his father worked in a small business where he learned his trade of carpentry, but when he came out after getting his trade, there was no work. And if they wanted to have a future, they both knew they had to go to America, and both of them got the opportunity. And when you look at Ireland as a whole, when you look at America and the diaspora that came out to America and emigrated there, it very much west of Ireland, where I guess it was hardest hit during downturns. Of course, you had Dublin here that would always support its people, would have more opportunities for work. But if people wanted to get ahead and succeed, I think a lot of the cream of the crop and the real go-getters emigrated to America. And by God, a lot of them did very, very, very well for themselves. And a lot of money was sent back, and it will always be said, everybody was waiting for the letters to come back from America filled with American dollars, which kept this country going too. So my parents emigrated, and with always the plan of coming back to Ireland, which that never happened. They had 7 children. Of course, you get into life and in that, schooling and the rest of it. But now it's starting to come the other way because I've now bought a house in Ireland and my family is starting to come over here more. So I'm looking forward to having the house on a homestead. It's just across the road from where my mother grew up. And it's very, very touching to her to be here and to get a chance to really get to bond with my family, because I grew up without, even though I have close to 100 first cousins, I didn't have any in New York. So we had no family, so it was wonderful as ourselves to come back, and now we're emigrating the other way. So it's all turning around. But there's no place like Ireland as far as the scenery, the quality of life. It's great to be in America, but it's a go, 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 go. And it's nice to come back here and smell the roses and to sit back a little bit and enjoy the music and, again, the people and the crack.
I think the stories, it doesn't matter what the content is, but people love to tell stories in Ireland, and everyone I meet along the way, I try and figure out what their story is, or just get them to tell a story that they know. And there's always, again, there's a humor involved. It can be a dark humor sometimes, but it's always an enjoyable thing, So that's probably my favorite thing about our culture.
My favorite thing about my Irish heritage, I suppose, is that I come from a family that is rooted in, we were raised Gaelic speaking at home in Dublin, which was a kind of unusual thing. And it has opened up so many doors for me because I never had to learn it. It was just there. And when you talk to people who spend time trying to reconnect with their own heritage, one of the key aspects I think that they all find is the language, because every country, when you hear people speak, you know where they're from. If you hear French people speaking or Japanese people speaking, the language is the first thing you hear, which lands them where they come from. And in Ireland's case, we've shifted to English so much that it's sometimes you get mistaken for other being from other places, and it's not a bad thing. It's just that something what I find most I suppose gratifying about how the heritage that I have and that my family have kept going is that we have the music at home all the time, and we have the language, and we still speak it, and the notes on the fridge are in Irish and Gaelic, and the telephone texts are, and all that is in Gaelic. So that's the part of my heritage that I'm delighted to still have. Yeah.
Well, I have to be honest, how would I describe myself as being Irish? I'm Irish to the backbone.
Without exception, the most exciting event on the day is the parade. A mix of colourful floats, pipe bands, dancers and performers, the parade is a great event for the entire family to enjoy. It has grown from its humble beginnings and has now spread to countries all over the world who also now celebrate with their own St. Patrick's Day parade festivities. One of the biggest parts of the St. Patrick's Day celebrations are the Irish music and dance events. Performances range from local events to large music and dance festivals, where revellers enjoy the best of both. It's well known that Irish music has travelled the world over, and it's rare to find someone who doesn't have a love for our music. Passionate and sometimes heartbreaking poetry set to the rhythms of Irish music is one of the most popular genres of music enjoyed globally.
Why is music and dance, Irish music and dance, received so well over the world? I would say mostly it's because of the infectious nature of it, and it's quite an accessible music in terms of in a lot of music, traditional music in Europe, it's all spectacular music in the same way that people say about Irish music. But I think a lot of the time, if you get into the nitty-gritty of it, the harmonic nature of a lot of the music there is a little bit different to mainstream modes and that kind of stuff. So if you listen to pop music through the last century, and even jazz that's been kind of simplified to prepare the music for the average ear. I think Irish music falls into that category of being slightly simplified, easier to listen to. Can be very repetitive to people who don't necessarily know the ins and outs of it, but on the surface I think it's very easy for the ear. It doesn't jar. The transition of notes is very straightforward compared to a lot of other music. That's beautiful, but it's not in the same way, particularly Eastern music, that people would often go, oh, that's not my cup of tea. So I don't know, other than that I think it's been played a lot. Irish people emigrated obviously all over the world, and they brought instruments with them or picked them up when they got to their location, their destinations, and started playing the music of Ireland, and it became just a sort of a popular thing. I don't know other than that.
Yeah, well, actually, I was very fortunate in how I began to play Irish music. My parents don't play any instruments. My grandparents, none of them played an instrument. I have some other relatives that played music, but not that I interacted with when I was young. It was actually all in my elementary school, my primary school. I had 2 or 3 fantastic teachers that would come into the school and teach music and dance. And it was just part of my everyday schooling. It was just part of the atmosphere of the school that traditional music was important and you needed to learn it. So it was just like any other subject, but also it was a lot of fun, and we had trips abroad and all of these different things that were kind of, not everyone has those opportunities. So the minute I saw the potential with that, I jumped at it. So.
But for me personally, St. Patrick's Day usually means a concert. I'm usually playing somewhere, which is great. It means you can celebrate and get a gig out of it too. But no, I generally try to be at home if I can on St. Patrick's Day, because it's one of those days that you can gather with family because it's a bank holiday at home, so everybody's free, and it's for me it's more family than anything because everybody's around, and unless there's a concert on, I'll always make a point of being with the family. I don't go to the parade anymore as something, even though the Dublin parade, my great-grandfather, Sean P. O'Shea, was one of the first people to set up the St. Patrick's Day parade in Dublin. So he was on the Business Association board that set up the first parade in the Irish Republic when it was after independence. So there's a connection to the actual Dublin parade in the family, but it's not something that I guess I prefer to celebrate it with music and song and family than anything else. So it's always just beeline from Mom's house.
Well, growing up, I always spent my St. Patrick's Day always going down to the parade with my family. It was always a very special family day. But for the last 20 years, every St. Patrick's Day has been spent with the symphony around the country, playing Irish music, which is, I'm very proud of the fact to see our Irish traditional music and song and dance being incorporated with the symphony and being actually heralded and picked up and being performing in the finest performing arts centers in the country. So that's where I am St. Patrick's Day.
So what specifically got me involved in music is my parents were both very fond of music. My mother was a piano teacher, and there was music in the house all the time. I was always drawn to the drums and always wanted to be a drummer. I studied music throughout school, and I went on to study classical music. But my love for folk music and traditional music was there from the get-go, especially having grown up in Canada. The music from the East Coast of Canada is very Irish and Scottish oriented. There's a lot of people who came over from Ireland, and the music is from that area, and that's the music I grew up with. That's the folk music I grew up with. So always wanted to be in an Irish band, and getting a chance to play in Runa has been a dream come true.
I went to Ireland. My first trip was when I was 12 years old, and I went to the Willie Clancy Summer School to learn the pipes. Yeah, and there was a week of classes, and there was concerts every day, and just music. And I think that really was the hook, line, and sinker for me. When you pick up the pipes, and then you go over to Ireland, and you're surrounded with other pipers, and the music and the tradition, you can't help falling in love with it.
Well, growing up in New York, I was very fortunate to have the advantage that my father was a very well-known musician. My father was an All-Ireland champion on the accordion. And he was so thrilled to finally have in me a child to pass his music down to who played the music. I have a brother who's a great drummer, but he likes rock and roll more than he likes traditional Irish music. But my father, for me, there was a tune called Sean Secure that I remember learning very well in the back of a car as my father whistled it to me, and I played in the back seat of the car with the tin whistle, and he whistled it all the way up the road, and it was a tune that he won the All-Ireland with when he won it, and I later went on to record it on my first solo album. So it all went around full tilt.
Not to be outdone by its partner, Irish dance has come a long way in its development and is now enjoyed and taught all over the world. Irish dancing has grown from local feshes to world-class competitions and professional touring shows which are enjoyed globally.
With Irish dance, I pretty much discovered it like a lot of Americans, and that was through PBS. I remember my mom saying, "Hey, come here, you gotta watch this. This is Riverdance thing that's on TV, everybody's talking about it." And I ran into the living room, and I'm watching this number, and there's Michael Flatley and Gene Butler, and everybody on this big dance line, and everybody's in sync. And I had no idea what they were doing, I just knew it was awesome. And after a few weeks, I'd say that kind of dissipated for me, the excitement, and then shortly thereafter, Lord of the Dance was on there. And again, my mom says, come here, you gotta see this. And there was Dara Nolan, the lead villain in Lord of the Dance, and he was out there with all of his bad guys, everybody dressed in black and purple, and it was adrenalizing like no other. And again, I had no idea what they were doing. All I know is I needed to know how to do that, and I was going to learn how to do that. Not being Irish, obviously, this was not in my culture. I played the bagpipes, and yes, I always knew what bagpipes were as a kid and everything, but it was something that was always in the background. It's like I never had an urge to do that or any interest in that when I was younger. With Irish dance, I think that was much more, I don't want to say secretive, but I think that was maybe a cultural activity that was only visible if you were Irish. And not being in there, in that culture, it was unknown to me until Riverdance and Lord of the Dance hit. And once Lord of the Dance hit, I said I have to do that. And I ended up in a whole string of chances. I ended up interviewing Michael Flatley over the phone in September of '97. And the very next day, I was on the phone looking for Irish dance schools that would take adults. So I was probably about 19 years old when I took my first, 19 or 20 when I took my first Irish dance lesson.
I was around 5 and a half. Both my parents were Appalachian cloggers. So we were constantly at different festivals, constantly around music of different kinds. And we were at a festival, and I saw people step dancing up on stage. I said, "That's what I want to do." And my mom said, "Yeah, sure, okay, someday." I said, "No, I want to do it now." So I joined a troupe and wound up taking classes for quite a while and competing. And just really, really enjoyed it. And around, I guess, a year later, I had started taking piano lessons and singing at school. And that kind of, for a while, they both kind of went hand in hand. And then the singing, playing piano, and acting kind of became a forefront. I stopped competing. I just didn't like competition kind of sides of things. And I was focused on acting for a while, thought I was going to be an actor. I went to school for that, but was dancing kind of just on my own time. And then after I graduated, a friend of mine sent me an audition for a world music band, and so I got into performing in a different way and using step dancing in a different way. And so once I became part of Runa, we incorporated it into the show, and so now I get to do all of them.
Yeah, my personal history with Irish dance, I started dancing when I was 4 or 5 years old. It was part of my primary school. So once a week I would go for a class during school hours, and then as I got a little bit older and realised I was doing well with it, I would go for evening classes, and I just kept going. And then you would do competitions. But at the age of 7 or 8, so around 7 or 8 years old, I was a part of a show that was travelling to Western Europe, and also we went to the Philippines. I was in Manila at the age of 9, and I was a dancer in that show. It was like a pageant aspect of this particular music show, and I saw what music and dance would be able to let me travel the world and see these amazing cultures. So at that very young age, I was like, there's something here for me. So I competed all the way up, and I still do it in shows. Yeah.
So I'd say what got me started in Irish music, I first remember hearing it maybe when I was 6 or 7 years old, driving in the car, and the Chieftains were on, and I heard all these great bands, Battlefield Band, Alton, Clannad. They were household names for us, and so I grew up with the sounds of the whistle, pipes, fiddle, and accordion just throughout the house. And I think I was about 10 when I saw Riverdance. My parents sat me down and had me watch this recording, and there was a dance, and that was great. And I actually started dancing for a year before I played music, and I'd say the dance, what you dance to is traditional Irish music, and that's when I heard even more of it, and then just fell in love with the sound. And I picked up the tin whistle at age 11 and just started with that more, and then dance not as much when I found the music, but then the pipes after that upon seeing Riverdance again.
Emigration has always been a strong and definitive part of Irish history. Many people emigrated out of choice or necessity with the hope and promise of a better life. St. Patrick was a stranger to Ireland but created a new life there. And in much the same way, Irish people throughout the world have assimilated into different countries and cultures and forged out successful paths for themselves, taking music and dance in new directions that continue to evolve.
Well, one of the things that I've gotten involved with lately for the past 5 years, I'm doing my 6th one now, is a cruise that I've organized called the Joni Madden's Folk and Irish Cruise, and where I bring together 80 musicians, singers, and dancers from all over Ireland and America. And in addition to that, we get hundreds of passengers that come who love to sing and play and dance. And every year it's getting bigger and bigger. And again, the music through Riverdance and the success of Lord of the Dance, it really brought an incredible shining light on the Irishness of and the creativity of the people and the musicians of Ireland. And for a little country, my God, it certainly has done its due diligence in talent and has really gone around the world twice over. I mean, I'm so proud as a girl who grew up from the Bronx, making my living playing traditional Irish music around the world. And it's been such so rewarding of a life that I've done. I mean, everybody thought I was nuts when I was becoming a musician, girl from the Bronx, playing Irish music for a living, but it certainly has, it's gone around the world. And it's not just Irish Americans that love the music. It's people from every ethnic background that comes in and packs our shows. They're selling out everywhere, and it's all through of all the support from the people who fall in love with the music through public television, mainly in America.
Rhythm in the Night, the Irish Dance Spectacular, is a production I created with my business partner, Justin Boros, and he was previously in Lord of the Dance for about 2-3 years, and he came up to me one day after he was out of the show, and I think his emotional attachment was so invested in the show and the enjoyment and the appreciation of being there. Coming back to the 9-to-5 job was something very difficult to do, and he came up to me one day and he said, "Hey, why don't we create our own show?" Okay. Instead of focusing on the hero, like most stories, whether on stage or on film do, we're not focusing on the hero, we're focusing on the villain. And in our show, Justin is the lead villain. So he stands at about 6'4", 270, and when you first look at him, you see this bodybuilder that you think is going to be absolutely clumsy on stage in hard shoes, but it absolutely is not the case. He knocks it out of the park every time. And then we've got a phenomenal troupe of 16 dancers and 2 violinists behind us, and some of the best people in the business from around the world. Our good guy lead is straight from Moscow, and our other dancers, like I said, all over US, Canada, Ireland, Scotland, and it's just it's a great thing to be a part of, and it's great seeing that show come to fruition. We just finished our 3rd national tour in spring of this year, 2016, and we're gearing up right now for our 2017 spring tour, and we're also having a spin-off show that we're launching in December of 2017, which is the the Rhythm in the Night Christmas Irish Dance Spectacular.
Well, we got to do a PBS special that was aired on American public television across America, and we called a show An Irish Homecoming. Again, we brought together, incorporating a big part of what we did. Long before there was Riverdance or Lord of the Dance or any of that, we always had Irish dancers touring with us. Because whenever the dancers would get up, it would bring it all to life. So on this program, I brought together 7 dancers and a 12-piece string orchestra, as well as Grammy nominee many times over, Maura O'Connell, who's made her home in Nashville, Tennessee for many, many years. So we put that show together, and we were very, very proud when it won an Emmy. But again, it was just great to do and have to finally get ourselves on public television, where, you know, it's great to have Celtic Woman, but it was great as ourselves, as traditional musicians and folk musicians and real traditional Irish dancers, to do our own thing and get our own time on the spotlight.
I've been performing on stages since I was 7 or 8 years old, and the thing I enjoy most is what you can translate to people, no matter what background they're coming from. All sorts of people can come to your show and come away with something. Usually when it's a new culture, they're taken by what you have, what history has offered up to this generation. And also you can have really special moments with people that it just means so much to them, and they have something to take away from the whole experience. So that's my favorite thing about it, for sure.
I was 15 when I started playing guitar professionally. I kicked in when I was about 21, so not a huge gap there. When I first started, I used to busk on the street in Dublin with my uncle and then with my brother, and we kind of started our first band. It was a traditional music band, but my music was not really traditional music to begin with. I mostly dabbled in a lot of different styles: flamenco, jazz, rock music. They very much influenced my style of guitar playing now. And then I developed a thing, but it was never meant to be professional. You know, nobody ever sets out, well, not with traditional music, to be a professional musician. But I got a wonderful opportunity to play in Riverdance in 1999, so 18 years ago. And from then I just thought, well, I give this a shot, you know, see how it goes. And since then I've had incredible opportunities to play professionally with some of the greatest Irish musicians and people. So one thing leads to another. It's never predetermined by a musician, I don't think. You just hope for the best, and I know I'm very, very lucky and very grateful to be, you know, privileged to be able to play professionally, for sure.
You know, it's wonderful to do something you love and to get accolades and to be singled out for what you do. And one of the nicest things that I got for 2016 was being named one of the top 50 most powerful Irish American women, well, in Irish America and the world is what they said. As a woman, I'm very proud of that, because I did come from a background where it wasn't so easy. There wasn't an all-girl band when we started, and there was again, when the people had this for certain view that we were only getting together as a marketing ploy, and they didn't realize that I surround myself with incredible singers and dancers and musicians, and we just don't do this to be a cutesy girl band. We're out there to be a very powerful, creative, and doing our own music. We don't sound like anybody else, and nobody sounds like us. We write a lot of our own material. So it's wonderful when Irish American Magazine singled me out to be, you know, but I'm doing this because I love it, and it's wonderful to get these accolades, but I would be doing it with or without the accolades. But it is great to be set aside and said congratulations, to be amongst all those incredible women from all walks of life. It was just wonderful to be in their company, for sure.
It is believed that St. Patrick died on March 17, 461 AD, and is buried in Down Cathedral, County Down. The exact burial spot is unknown, but a carved stone made from Mourne Mountain granite marks his grave and has become a place not only of pilgrimage, but of prayer every year. From the annual pilgrimage on Croagh Patrick to the first lighting of the Paschal fire, Ireland's patron saint is woven into the countryside and the very heart of Ireland and its people. So every year, we will celebrate one of Ireland's most famous sons and honour his legacy with festivities, song and dance, along with the unspoken second language of all Irish hearts, the universal wearing of green.
There was not in this wide world a valley so sweet as that vale in whose bosom the bright waters meet. Oh, the last rays of feeling and life must depart ere the bloom of that valley shall fade from my heart, ere the bloom of that valley shall fade from my heart. Yet it was not that nature had shed o'er the scene her purest of crystal and brightest of green. 'Twas not her soft magic of streamlet or hill. Oh no, it was something more exquisite still. Oh no, it was something more exquisite still. Was that friends beloved of my bosom were near, who made every dear scene of enchantment more dear, and who felt that the best charms of nature improve when we see them reflected from looks that we love, when we see them reflected from looks that we love. Sweet vale of Avoca, how calm could I rest in thy bosom of shade with